I am not telling you this to ask for sympathy. I do not deserve it. Not after everything I've done. Not after the lives I've damaged. And the lives I've ended in ways I can never take back. If you are standing at the edge between right and wrong, don't take another step. Turn back while you still can. Because the moment you cross that line, you won't just destroy someone else's life, you will set fire to your own. My name is Ava Reed, and this is how it started. I was 28 when I met Daniel. I was working as a PR executive for a fashion brand, busy, ambitious, restless. That night was supposed to be nothing more than a networking event, a 5-star hotel ballroom, golden lights pouring down from crystal chandeliers, the soft clink of champagne flutes, and the low hum of expensive conversation. The air was heavy with perfume, the kind that lingers long after the party ends. I went with Nadia, my colleague and closest friend at the time. She was the one who thrived in these rooms. I was there because I had to be, shaking hands, smiling just enough, waiting for the night to be over. And then I saw him, Daniel, tall, broad shoulders, in a perfectly cut suit. A smile that looked like it belonged in an ad. But it was his eyes that caught me. There was a weight in them, a tiredness, like someone carrying too much for too long. We were introduced by a mutual contact in the industry. I expected a quick hello, a polite exchange. Instead, the conversation drifted, and within minutes, it turned personal. He told me his marriage was barely alive, that he stayed for his little girl. I remember nodding, saying nothing, but inside, I felt something dangerous stir, a connection, a pull. I told myself I was just listening, that I was being kind. But deep down, I was already starting to bend the truth in my own mind, telling myself I wasn't doing anything wrong if he wasn't happy at home. After the event, my phone buzzed, a short message from Daniel. Thank you for tonight. It's been a long time since I felt this at ease. I stared at it longer than I should have before I replied. That was the first step, the first thread pulled loose. The messages became a nightly ritual. Work frustrations, little details about his daughter's school, how lonely it felt to come home to silence. I began to look forward to that small vibration on my nightstand. One evening, he asked if I wanted to grab a drink after work. I said yes, without hesitation. We met in a dim corner of a quiet bar. He made me laugh. When we left, he walked me to my car, and there in the glow of the streetlight, he kissed me, soft at first, then deeper. When we pulled apart, we didn't need to say anything. We both knew what had just begun. I drove home telling myself, if he's this unhappy, maybe I'm not really doing something terrible. A week later, Nadia caught a glimpse of his name lighting up my phone. She didn't read the message, but she didn't need to. You're playing with fire, Ava, she warned. I laughed it off, told her it wasn't serious. Inside, I'd already decided to ignore her. We became careful, meeting in coffee shops on the other side of town, restaurants where the lights were low and no one would look too closely. I told myself it was only temporary, that one day we wouldn't have to hide. One weekend, he told his wife he was going on a business trip, but he never left the city. Instead, he booked a hotel room for us downtown. We stayed up talking until 2 a.m, and somewhere between the wine and the quiet, he said the words that hooked me completely. I wish I'd met you earlier, before all of this. My eyes drifted to the wedding band on his finger. I should have felt guilt. I didn't. I thought, one day that ring will be mine. Time blurred after that. Work during the day. Him at night. Everything else began to fade into the background. Then came the morning I couldn't ignore what my body was telling me. I was late. I felt heavy, off balance. I told myself it was stress, but deep down, I already knew. I bought a test and sat on the edge of my bed while the seconds dragged on. 2 lines. Clear. Undeniable. Shock came first. Then something else. A dangerous smile. Now, he would have to choose. Now I would be more than the woman he texted after dark. I picked up my phone, typed slowly, "We need to talk. Tonight." And as I pressed send, I had no idea. This wasn't the beginning of our life together. It was the beginning of the end. If there is one moment I could tear out of my life, crumple into a ball, and throw into a fire, it would be the moment I turned my own child into a bargaining chip. I can still hear my voice in that room, calm on the surface, but sharpened like a blade underneath. I can still see his face when the words landed, and I can still taste the bitter pride I felt, thinking I had just played the perfect move. At the time, I told myself it was smart, that it was the only way to secure my place in Daniel's life, that I was doing it for us, for our future. Now, I see it for what it really was: selfishness, cold, deliberate selfishness, wrapped in the illusion of love. That day, the air in my apartment felt still, heavy, like it knew what I was about to do. Daniel came over after work, loosening his tie as he stepped inside. He smiled at me, but it was small distracted. I didn't bother with small talk. I had been rehearsing this all day. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted it to come out exactly right. I wanted to control the moment. "I'm pregnant." 2 words, but they shifted the air between us instantly. His hands froze halfway to removing his jacket. The color drained from his face. For a second, he just stared, like he was trying to catch up to what I'd said. Then, finally, "Are you sure?" I nodded, and then I said the words I wish I could swallow back. "You have to choose Daniel. Because of our child, you can't stay in 2 places anymore." He leaned back against the arm of the couch. His eyes went to the floor. He didn't speak, not for a long time. The clock on the wall ticked loud in the silence. I remember my heartbeat was steady, not racing from fear, but steady in anticipation. Because I wasn't worried about losing him. I was waiting for the moment I would win. It didn't take long. A few days later, Marissa found out. I never asked how. Maybe she saw the messages we sent when we thought we were careful. Maybe someone told her. What matters is... She acted quickly. Daniel came to me one night, shoulders slumped, and said, "She's filed for divorce." There was no shouting match between them, no desperate attempt to fix it. She simply ended it. And I felt something warm bloom in my chest. I smiled inside, if not on my face. I had broken a marriage, and all I could think was, I had won. That thought, that feeling, still makes me sick when I remember it now. Daniel moved into my apartment soon after. 2 suitcases, a garment bag, and an expression I didn't quite recognize. We talked about having a small wedding once the papers were final. We picked colors, discussed music, imagined a quiet ceremony, and in my head, I pictured the life we were about to build. But the man sitting on my couch wasn't the same one who used to send me long, late-night texts telling me I was the only good thing in his day. He was quieter. He moved slower. I'd find him sitting alone, phone in his hands, staring at photos of his daughter. Sometimes his lips would curl into a faint smile. Other times, there was nothing on his face at all. When I asked what he was thinking, he'd shake his head. Nothing. And then he'd walk away. It shames me to admit this, but I began to resent her. A little girl. I was jealous of her place in his heart, jealous of her memories with him, jealous of the way she could still pull a smile from him when I no longer could. And I hated myself for feeling that way, but not enough to stop. Then came the night the floor fell out from under me. It started with a sharp pain low in my stomach, sudden and deep like something tearing. I was in the kitchen. The glass in my hand slipped and shattered on the tile. I grabbed the counter trying to breathe, but the pain came in waves that stole my breath away. Daniel rushed in eyes wide and caught me as my knees buckled. He didn't waste time asking questions. He grabbed his keys, half carried me to the car, and sped through the city toward the hospital. The ride was a blur of streetlights and cold sweat. I remember staring at the dark sky through the window, my reflection pale and unfamiliar. The smell of antiseptic hit me the second we entered the emergency ward. They moved me quickly, voices low but urgent. A nurse held my hand. Her grip was warm, but her eyes told me before her words did. The doctor's voice was steady, rehearsed. I had lost the baby. They said it was my health, the stress, the pressure I'd been under for weeks, but I knew the truth was darker. I had built my world on deceit and tension, and that was the world I had wrapped around this child. I had smothered it in chaos before it ever had a chance. When they wheeled me back into my room, Daniel was sitting in a chair in the corner. His elbows rested on his knees, his head in his hands. I waited for him to look up, to come closer, to hold me. I needed him to tell me we'd get through this, that losing the baby didn't mean losing us. Instead, he looked up only for a moment, then away again. He sighed and said quietly, "Maybe we moved too fast." Those words landed heavier than any shout. They weren't filled with anger, they were filled with resignation, finality, like a door had closed somewhere inside him, and I was on the other side, locked out. I turned toward the window. The city lights outside blurred through my tears until they were nothing but smears of gold and white. I pressed my hand to my stomach flat now and felt the emptiness there. I had lost my child before I'd even heard its heartbeat. But lying in that bed, I realized something else. I was already losing him too, piece by piece. And the worst part was knowing it was all because of me. Told myself a wedding would make us real, that it would rinse the past, that it would quiet the noise and turn scandal into something people would have to accept. Looking back, it was nothing like a beginning. It was paperwork dressed in lace. It was a ceremony for a mistake that had already decided its own ending. I stood there in white, not a grand white, just a cautious shade smiling until my cheeks trembled, pretending vows could glue together a story that had started with lies. The music was soft. The flowers were perfect. The room was small on purpose. Fewer eyes, fewer witnesses, fewer people to remember. A few friends who were willing to ignore what we had done stood in the back like shadows. Most of the people I loved had already slipped away. I told myself they were busy, that life had scattered them. But I knew why they were not there. I knew, and I kept smiling anyway. Daniel looked beautiful. He always did. The suit fit like it had been sewn on his skin, his hair neat, his hands steady as he held mine. But his eyes, they kept wandering. They would land on me, and then drift past me, as if something on the wall had more gravity. I felt lightheaded, and I called it joy. I felt hollow, and I called it peace. I kept telling myself that saying the words out loud would make love behave, that once we were husband and wife, the past would stop clawing at our door. The vows rose and fell like smoke. They did not stick. They did not sink in. They hovered between us weightless, while I pretended to feel them settle. After the small reception, the silence started. It did not arrive with a bang. It seeped in. Text threads that used to light up my phone went dim. Laughter in hallways at work softened when I walked by, the way sound changes in a church. Colleagues who once leaned over my desk to gossip stood at a measured distance and spoke to me like I was made of glass and bad decisions. Lunch invites disappeared. Birthday reminders were missed. I watched my circle fold in on itself until I could hold it in one hand. Online, the world sharpened its teeth. A stranger with a brand new account posted a roll of photos me and Daniel in a corner cafe. My fingers looped through his, a kiss caught in a reflection. Pictures from before the ink on the divorce was dry, before the ring on my finger existed. The captions were acid. The comments were stones. Homewrecker, thief, shameless. Words that bled under my skin even after I closed the app. I tried to block. I tried to report, but the images flowed outward like oil on water, slick and wide and impossible to contain. Each repost felt like a bell tolling in a city where everyone already knew my name. The morning after the worst of it, Karen called me into her office. The door did not close all the way, a small gap that made the room feel colder. She gestured at the chair across from her and folded her hands like a lawyer. Her voice was even, compassionate on the surface, careful underneath. Ava, keep everything quiet. No posts, no pictures, no public hand-holding, unless it is necessary for work. The company cannot carry your storm. I nodded because there was nothing else to do. I said I understood. Inside, something tightened around my lungs. When your boss speaks to you like you are a risk, you can feel the walls inch inward. You can hear your footsteps echo in your own job. At home, I clung to the ring. I turned it with my thumb the way a child rubs a talisman smooth. I whispered the same sentence over and over when the apartment settled into nighttime quiet. We are married now. It will get better. He will come back to the way he was when this was secret and new and shining. The problem with promises you make to yourself is how easy they are to keep until morning. In the daylight, the ring felt heavier. The metal did not warm. Daniel worked later. He left earlier. He said he had meetings, or last-minute calls, or errands that only he could run. When he was home, his body was with me, but the rest of him was somewhere I could not reach. Sometimes he stood by the window with his phone in his hand, the screen lighting his face, a half smile that looked like a reflex and not a feeling. I would ask if he wanted tea. He would say, maybe later. Maybe later became a kind of prayer in our house, quiet, circular, answered by nothing. I tried to be gentle. I cooked his favorite dishes even when I had to search the recipe twice to remember the spice that made them taste like memory. I left notes in his coat pocket that said, I love you, even when it rains. I laughed at jokes that were not funny because I wanted to keep laughter in the room. I told myself that patience is proof of love. What I did not tell myself, what I could not bear to say out loud, was that I was terrified. Terrified that the life I had ripped open to make room for us was closing again. And this time, it would shut me out. Friends tried to help in the way people help when they are tired of helping. A message that said maybe take a break from the apps. A comment that said time heals. A silence that said, we are watching you learn the hard way. I wanted to ask them to hold my hand through this. I wanted to ask for forgiveness I did not deserve. Instead, I posted nothing. I spoke to almost no one. I carried the noise inside my chest where no one could see it. Then, there was the night of the lit screen. He had left his phone on the kitchen counter while the shower ran. I was not snooping. I was slicing fruit I did not want because my hands needed work. The screen woke up. A name appeared like a knock I knew by heart. Marissa. I did not touch the phone. I did not breathe for a moment. The preview sat there, a few small words that felt larger than the room. I miss her too. I think about you both every day. I could hear the water in the bathroom. I could hear the clock above the fridge. I could hear my own blood. I did not open the message. The story it told was already whole. A father missing his child. A man speaking gently to the woman who used to be his home. Part of him was still there, tucked into the corners of a life I had tried to take for myself. Maybe that part had never moved out. Maybe it never would. I set the phone back exactly where it had been, as if my fingerprints could change the meaning. When he walked in, hair damp, fresh shirt, he smiled the practiced smile he had started to wear like a uniform. I asked if he wanted tea. He said, maybe later. We ate in a quiet that made the fork sound loud. He talked about a meeting the next day. I nodded like a metronome. My voice stayed in my throat where it could not reveal me. That night, I lay beside him and watched the ceiling. The room smelled like clean laundry and steam. His breathing was even, slow, a tide pulling back and rushing in. I pressed my fingers to the ring and felt the ridges against my skin. It did not feel like proof anymore. It felt like a weight I had asked to wear. A band that said you got what you wanted. And somehow, it is still not yours. I wish I could tell you I confronted him then. I wish I could say I chose honesty. But I had built my life on secrecy and leverage, and old habits do not dissolve when you put on a dress and sign your name. I chose silence because it felt safer. I chose denial because I was tired. I chose the dark because the light would have shown me the shape of what we had become. In the morning, he left early. He kissed my forehead like I was a child he was tucking back into bed. The door clicked shut. The apartment exhaled. I wandered to the kitchen and poured coffee I did not drink. I stared at the place on the counter where the phone had lit up. And I understood something without wanting to. Marriage had not stitched us together. It had only drawn a circle around a wound and written the word permanent. I told myself a wedding would make us real. The truth is crueler. It made our ruin official and put it in a frame. And as the days stretched long and thin, I kept hearing the words I had not read but felt all the same. I miss her too. I think about you both every day. Two people on the other side of a door I had slammed. A man who now stood in the hallway between houses, pretending the echo was a home. I turned my ring again and again until my skin grew tender. I told myself he would come back to me, that grief can look like distance, that adjusting takes time. But the truth sat with me like a shadow that would not move. Part of him never left her, and maybe he never would. I used to think that a home would hold us together. 4 walls, a roof, 2 names on a lease, and a ring on a finger. I told myself stability could be built like furniture, assembled with patience, tightened with promises. But a house does not heal what is already cracked. It only gives the echo somewhere to live. The day the first real fracture showed itself, Daniel came back from the office with his tie loosened and his mouth set in a line I had never seen before. He dropped his bag by the door and stood there, not moving, like a man who had just been told there was no more road ahead. I asked if he wanted water. He did not answer. He just said, "Flat. We lost the project." The big one, the one he had used like a lighthouse when everything else felt dark. He sat down slowly, hands clasped, and then the words came like gravel. "They do not want to be associated with me. Not after all the noise. Not after the photos. Not after the comments that refused to die." He looked at me then, as if the scandal was a stain he could see on my skin, as if scrubbing me would bring the contract back. I told him clients change their minds all the time. I told him the market was fickle. I told him we could pivot, rebuild, wait it out. But he was already choosing a different story. "This is because of us," he said. "Because of what we did. Because of how it looks. Because nobody wants to bet on a man who turns his life into a headline." The word "us" landed like an accusation. I felt my back go up before my heart could catch me. "We did this together," I wanted to say. "We chose each other," but it came out sharper. "I have paid for this too. I have lost friends. I have lost sleep. I have lost a child." The room chilled. We stared at each other from opposite ends of the same loss. After that, the evenings became long and sour. He started bringing home the smell of something stronger than cologne. At first, it was a drink to take the edge off. Then it was the edge itself. He came home later, words slurring at the corners, patience thinned to threads. He stopped pretending with me the way he still pretended with everyone else. The careful man I had fallen for went out for air and did not always come back. We fought the way people do when they are really arguing with themselves. I threw sentences that were half truth and half fear. He threw silence that felt like a wall. Sometimes he raised his voice. Sometimes I did. Sometimes neither of us said anything, and it still felt like shouting. In the middle of that winter of small wars, my body whispered a familiar secret, a strange tiredness, a nausea that arrived like a tide and left me holding the sink. I counted days in my head and then stopped counting because I already knew. I bought a test anyway. I watched the lines appear with a steadiness that made my knees soft. I sat on the edge of the bathtub, holding the plastic like it was a fragile bird. A second chance, I thought. A new thread strong enough to pull us back together. If a child could not save us before, maybe this time we would meet the moment differently. Maybe grief had humbled us enough to make room for gentleness. I waited for him in the living room. He came home with his shirt wrinkled and his eyes glassy from a long day that started too early and ended too late. I asked him to sit. My voice shook, and I told myself it was hope, not fear. I am pregnant, I said. The words hung there, trembling, beautiful, and terrifying. For a heartbeat, he seemed to hear them. Then something shuddered in his face. He did not smile. He did not stand. He did not touch me. He looked past me and said, measured and distant, I am not sure. This is a good time. The sentence cracked like ice underfoot. Not sure. Good time. As if a life asked permission from a calendar. As if our baby were a meeting he might move to next week when he felt less tired. I tried to breathe around the ache. I said we could figure it out. I said we would go to appointments, eat better, rest more, be careful. He nodded the way people nod when they are agreeing with the weather. Then he stood, said he had emails, and walked down the hall to the little room we called an office. I held the test until the small window blurred. I placed it gently in the drawer, like a secret that did not know if it was wanted. I told myself his fear was natural, that the project loss had shaken him, that men sometimes need time to catch up to the miracle women feel instantly. I told myself many stories that night. Most of them were kind. None of them were true. Days slid into each other. He worked late again. He laughed too loudly on phone calls that were meant to sound normal. He stopped asking if I had eaten. I started eating alone. I stroked my belly when no one was looking and promised a small person I would be better, softer, braver. I promised to build a different world inside the same walls. Then there was the night of the door I did not open. I woke thirsty and went to the kitchen for water. The apartment was dim, the city humming outside like a faraway ocean. From the office came a thread of light under the door, and Daniel's voice, lowered to a register he reserved for confessions and ghosts. I did not mean to listen. I was going to turn on the tap and go back to bed with my glass. But a sentence drifted out and pinned me where I stood. I wish I had never left my family. The words were quiet, almost a breath. He did not know I was there. He did not know I was holding my glass so tightly my fingers hurt. He did not know that a part of me left my body in that moment and stood in the hallway of his old house, where a child slept down the corridor and a woman I had defeated moved through rooms that still remembered the shape of her. I did not move. I did not cry. I watched my reflection in the black window, a woman holding still so her life would not make a sound. When the call ended, the light under the office door went dark. I padded back to bed and lay down on my side facing the wall. He came in softly, smelled of soap and something harsher, slid under the covers with careful movements like you use with a stranger. Neither of us spoke. In the silence, I heard a clock that we did not own. It ticked through everything we had ruined. I thought a home would keep us. I thought a child would save us, but you cannot patch a boat that is already full of holes and expect the sea to be gentle. It was not only that he did not want this child. The truth that pinned itself to my chest was colder than that. He did not want this life. Not the one with me. Not the one we had fought for by breaking something that used to be whole. I lay there until the first hint of morning thinned the dark, my hand on my belly, my eyes open, listening to a man breathe beside me like the tide of a place I did not live. And in that slow gray hour, I understood that the crack in our home was not in the paint or the plaster. It ran through us, deep and quiet, a fault line waiting for the next small tremor to become a collapse. I have replayed that day so many times that the walls of my memory feel thinner there. Paint rubbed off by my pacing, air worn down by my apologies that arrived too late. I wish I could say I stayed calm, that I chose kindness, that I understood what silence was trying to teach me. But I had been living with a sentence echoing in my head since the night I heard it through the door. I wish I had never left my family. It sat under my tongue like metal. It made everything taste bitter. Morning came, and I did not sleep. The sink still glittered with a crescent of water where my glass had rested. A towel hung crooked on the oven handle. The house wore the shape of a night that had not been gentle. Daniel walked in from the bedroom with a shirt half buttoned and a face that already looked tired of me. I asked if he wanted coffee. He said later. Later sounded like never. All day I rehearsed the same question, and each time I took the softness out of it. By evening, there was no softness left. He set his phone on the table, and it was as if the air thinned. I told myself I would not accuse. I would not beg. I would simply ask him to tell me who he had been when he said those words. But grief is heavy, and it drags your voice across gravel. I asked about the call. He said work. I said I heard you. He asked what I thought I heard. I said enough. The space between us tightened like wire. I asked if he missed them more than he could stand. He stared at me as if I had stolen his name and carved my own into it. He said I had destroyed his life, the contracts, the coworkers who will not meet his eye, the father who is now a rumor in his own house. He said I had taken the one good thing he had and turned it into noise. The words were not shouted, but they came hard and fast, and each one landed where I was most breakable. I said I was carrying his child. I said we could make this right. If not perfect, then at least kind. He laughed the way a person laughs when they are out of breath. He said he was not sure any of this was good, not sure this was a time for anything except cleaning up what could still be saved. I asked if he meant himself. He did not answer. He did not have to. The argument found its own legs and ran. We followed it from the kitchen to the living room and back again, circling the same wound like moths around a dim lamp. I remember the sound of my voice getting smaller even as it rose. I remember the way his hands kept opening and closing like he was trying to catch a thought that would not be caught. I remember the sharp edge of fear that sliced through my anger, and how I pushed past it anyway because I did not know how to stop. Then everything sped up. I stepped forward. He stepped back, and then forward again. His shoulder clipped mine. His palm hit my arm. Not a punch. Not open-handed kindness either. A shove driven by a heat he could not control. My heel slid on a bead of water that should not have been there. The counter corner rose like a fist. The world tilted. I felt the thud before I heard it. A shock flared low in my belly and rushed outward with a cold that stole my breath. Glass broke somewhere near my feet. A smell like metal opened in the room. I do not remember falling all the way. I remember the floor against my palms. Cool and unforgiving. I remember a pressure inside me that felt wrong in every direction at once. I remember Daniel saying my name, but the sound arrived late, as if it had to cross a river to find me. He knelt, and his hands hovered like startled birds. He kept saying he did not mean it. He did not mean it, as if intention could rewind bodies. The ride to the hospital happened in fragments. Red and blue light fell across the ceiling of the ambulance like a storm you can only see. A paramedic asked me to keep my eyes open, and I tried to pin them to a screw in the metal above me. I whispered to the small life inside me, "Stay. Please stay. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I will be better. I will be better than I have been." My apology sounded thin even to me. A hand squeezed mine, and I could not tell if it belonged to a stranger or to the man who had promised to protect me from a world he had helped ignite. Hospitals have their own weather. The air is too clean to be kind. The lights insist on truth. They moved me through doors that opened with a sigh, and the beeping surrounded me like a language I could not speak. A nurse spoke gently, and I wanted to hate her for it. A doctor asked questions, and I answered as if my voice belonged to someone practical. Time slowed to the pace of dripping taps. A screen showed a landscape I could not interpret. Gel cold on skin that felt like it belonged to someone else. The doctor's mouth shaped words I will never forget, even though I wanted to refuse them. "There is no heartbeat." The room quieted. Something inside me went still and stayed that way. I heard phrases like stress, like trauma, like not your fault, and I agreed and disagreed with each of them at once. I carried the truth under my ribs. I had built a life out of noise and asked a fragile heart to grow there. I had wrapped a beginning in the same darkness that had ended another. And now, there was nothing left to hold. They wheeled me back to a room where the lights were lower and the air pretended to be gentle. Daniel sat in a chair with his elbows on his knees. His eyes were red. His hands were clasped so tightly I thought I heard the bones. He stood and then sat and then stood again, a man rehearsing movements for a better version of himself that never arrived. He said he was sorry. He said he had lost too much, and he did not know how to be anything but angry. He said we should not tell anyone. He said it would only make things worse. I stared at the wall because the alternative was staring at him. I pressed my palm to my belly and felt the absence like a shape. I tried to remember the last time I had taken a full breath without thinking about who I was hurting by needing it. I could not. A clock I could not see marked time that did not belong to me. Footsteps passed and faded. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor kept up its even song, as if to prove that something in this place still knew how to continue. I closed my eyes and saw the exact moment in the kitchen when the floor took me, the angle of light, the shiver of glass, the way my name sounded when he did not want it to be mine anymore. The door opened and the weather changed. Hannah filled the space with the kind of breath you take when you have run while crying. Her hair was damp from the night outside. Her gaze went from my face to the sheets, to the corner where Daniel stood, trying to look smaller than his grief. She did not raise her voice. She did not waste words. She took my hand, and I felt our childhood in the shape of her grip. And then she said the only sentence that could still move me. "You are killing yourself, and you are dragging everyone down with you." The syllables did not need to be loud to be final. They settled over the bed like a sheet. I wanted to tell her I knew. I wanted to tell her I had known for longer than I admitted. No sound came. Just the hush of the room and the steady beep from somewhere I could not see. And the understanding that there are lines you cross once, and after that, there is no word for turning back. That night, I did not only lose the baby. I watched myself turn love into the worst thing I have ever known. This is the memory that strips me bare. There is no defense left to raise, only what I did, what he did, and what it cost. After the words I heard through the door, I wish I had never left my family. Sleep would not come. Morning tasted like metal. The apartment carried the shape of unrest. A glass drying on the counter. A towel crooked on the handle. I told myself I would ask and I would listen. I also told myself I needed him to deny it, so I could keep breathing. By evening, the quiet had sharpened. He set his phone on the table and looked past me. I asked about the call. He said work. I said I heard you. He asked what I thought I heard. I said enough. Who did you say that to, and why? Something in him burst open, and blame came pouring out. You ruined my life. The contracts. The name I built. The way my daughter looks at me now. You turned the only good thing I had into noise. He did not shout. He did not have to. Every word landed where I was most breakable. I said I was pregnant. I said we could be gentle, true, slow. He laughed with no joy. He said this was not a good time. He said he was not sure anything with me was good. I asked if the plan was to save himself. He did not answer. Silence can tell the truth with more cruelty than words. The argument moved on its own legs. We followed it from room to room, like people shadowing a fire. Fear cut through me, and I stepped over it anyway. He moved. I moved. Heat crowded the inches between us. His hand hit my arm, not a fist, not a touch, a shove, grown in a long season of anger. My balance broke. Pain split me open like a cold flash. The world tilted and would not tilt back. Breath left. My voice would not come. He fell to his knees beside me. Hands hovering, saying he did not mean it. As if intention could stitch the moment shut, I curled around the ache and begged the small life to stay. Stay. Please stay. I am sorry. I will be better. Even I did not believe the words. Sirens lived somewhere beyond the walls. Hands tried to help. His hand found mine and felt like ice. I heard him say, I did not mean to. And it rang hollow at the center of everything that could not be undone. The ride was a blur of motion and fear. I kept my eyes open because a voice told me to. I kept talking to the child because my heart told me to. Stay with me. Forgive me. Let me make this right. My apology sounded thin even to myself. Hospitals do not bargain. They speak in facts. Questions asked. Answers given. A pause that stretched until it cut. There is no heartbeat. The words landed and everything inside me went still. They said stress. They said trauma. They said body and strain. I nodded and disagreed in the same breath. Because I knew the life I had built. I knew what I had asked a fragile heart to grow inside. They moved me to a quieter room. He sat in a corner with red eyes and shaking fingers. He said he was sorry. He said he had lost too much and did not know how to be anything but angry. He asked me not to tell anyone. It would only make things worse. Worse meant worse for him. I kept my eyes on the wall because looking at him needed strength I did not have. I set my hand on the flat place where promise had been and felt the absence like a shape. I traced the line from the first time I used a pregnancy to force a choice, to this second loss laid at the feet of our ruin. Love had become violence. Care had become control. Responsibility had become a door he would not open. I had dragged another child into the same darkness and called it fate when it was choice. The door opened, and Hannah stepped in. My sister. Older by a few years, steadier, the one who taught me to look both ways and to tell the truth even when it stings.
Last time, when I lost the first baby, I hid it from her. I carried that grief alone because I was ashamed, because I did not want her to see what I had done. I told her I was fine, and she knew I was lying, and still she sent small messages on quiet mornings. Eat, sleep, call me. I did not call. I could hide then. I cannot hide now. She was here because the hospital had pulled my emergency contact, the one I never changed, or because he finally told her and could not hold the lie any longer. She took in the room with one look, the way only a sister can. The bed, my face. The man folded into himself. She came straight to me and took my hand like she had when we were small and I fell on the sidewalk. Her grip said, "I am here even if I am angry." Her eyes said, "I see you even when you will not see yourself." She did not ask for details. She did not catalog damage. She breathed once, steadying herself, and then she spoke. "You are killing yourself, and you are dragging everyone down with you." Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. It broke something that needed breaking. It broke the last defense I had left, the one that said, "This is love, and love can be forgiven for anything." I could not answer her. My throat closed around the truth. I turned my face toward the wall and let the tears come without sound. I knew what I had crossed. I knew what it had taken. I knew who had watched me do it, my sister, the mirror I had avoided. I felt the cold outline of the shape I had lost and the colder outline of the life I had been trying to keep. This was not only grief, this was recognition. He sat in the corner and asked again that we tell no one. He spoke of trouble and headlines and jobs and courtrooms and all the parts of survival that wear other people's names. I let his words pass like weather. Hannah's hand tightened, and I felt the exact weight of the choice in front of me. She knew about the hidden loss I never let her hold. She knew about this loss I could not hide if I tried. She knew about me, the way only a sister does, the way no man ever will. I breathed in. It hurt. I breathed out. It still hurt. But the pain finally said what I could not. This love is no longer love. It is a cage we keep relocking. If there is anything left in me worth saving, I will have to stop calling the cage a home. The monitor kept its indifferent rhythm. Hannah's thumb moved once against my knuckles. I whispered, "I am sorry," and meant every syllable. Not the thin sorry I had thrown at fate. The true one, the one that opens a door and asks the body to walk through. I do not know what comes next yet. I only know the shape of what cannot continue. I know I cannot hide from Hannah anymore. And I cannot hide from myself. I know I cannot ask another child to grow inside this storm.
And I know that when I finally stand, it will have to be for the first honest step I have taken in a long time, away from the ruin I made, toward whatever mercy remains for me, for the sister who would not give up on me, and for the child I lost learning what love is not. I wish the one who died was me. That thought sits in me like a stone. No defense, no speech, only the cost of what I did, and the bill has my name on it. The email came before noon. Protect the brand and the contract. Thank you for your time. I read it twice and nothing changed. Karen asked me to come in. I handed over the badge, the laptop, the codes I once guarded like a life. Sign here, sign there. A quiet room, a neat pen. I walked out lighter in my hands and empty everywhere else. Who am I if I am not this work? I asked the elevator doors. They stayed closed. When I got home, there was a message from him. I need to save myself first. I typed a reply, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Saving himself meant leaving me. I let the phone face down on the table and did not pick it up again. I took stock without drama. The job is gone. The man is gone. 2 children never came into the world. My sister is far from me because I pushed her there. No more stories. No more because of him. No more because of them. Only because of me. I can say it now without shaking. I am the reason I am here. I washed my face. I sat at the table. I pulled out paper, not a screen. I needed ink that could not be edited. I wrote her name slowly. Marissa. The letters felt heavier than any word I have written. I began without decoration. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am asking to meet one time. I will tell the truth about what I did. I will accept your answer. If it is no, I will not write again. If it is silence, I will live with it. I wrote the facts and left out the theater. I stepped into your marriage. I hurt your family. There were 2 pregnancies. Both ended. I will not contact him. I will not stand near your child. I am responsible for what I broke. I will carry it not in public, not for applause, but because it is mine. I stopped and looked at the page. No plea, no excuse, only the record. I folded the letter and sealed it. I wrote the address with a steady hand. I set it by the door where I could see it and not pretend I had dreamed it. I thought of everything I have tried to keep. I thought of how it slipped through my fingers anyway. Holding tighter did not save it. Holding tighter only crushed what was left. I cannot return what I took. I cannot balance the ledger with grief, but I can stop adding to the damage. I can face the person I hurt most and say the truth out loud. The room was plain. The day was plain. Good. Plain is what I deserve. Plain is where work begins. I wrote one more line for myself. No more bargaining. No more noise. Tell the truth. Do the work. Leave people in peace. I picked up the envelope and felt the small heat of a decision finished. Tomorrow I will put it in a mailbox and let it leave me. If she says no, I will accept it. If she says nothing, I will accept that too. Either way, I will start making repairs small and steady without my name on them. I turned off the light. No speeches, no prayers. Only the quiet and the letter by the door. I thought keeping him would keep my life. It kept only the losses. What comes next is simple, and it is mine to do. I am not asking for pity. I am not asking for a softer sentence. I have to live and carry what I did.
That is the only reason I am still here. I asked Marissa to meet me at a cafe. I arrived early, sat down, and told myself to keep it plain. When she came in, I stood, then sat, and began. I stepped into your marriage. I broke what was not mine. There were 2 pregnancies. Both ended, one under pressure, one under anger. Hannah is gone. I am sorry. I am not asking for forgiveness. She listened. No interruption. No rescue. No cruelty. Just listening. When I finished, she spoke steady. Clear. Forgiveness is not mine to give, but I hope you live differently. I nodded. Thank you, I said, for hearing me. That was all. I left the cafe empty. No tears, no scene, just a door, a street, a day that kept moving without me. I moved out of the old place and into a small apartment. 1 key, 1 lease. My name alone. I kept only what I needed: a bed, a chair, a table, a kettle, a notebook. I let the rest go. I found a small job at a nonprofit. Nothing grand. Shelves to stock, forms to file, phones to answer, floors to sweep, people to greet with a quiet yes. I worked my hours and went home. No posts, no stories, no applause. I began to make amends, the smallest kind. The kind that does not use anyone's name. An envelope for a school fund, another for a community program for children. No note, no return address. I did not keep copies. I did not keep track. At night, I wrote to Hannah. 1 page. What I did today. What I will not do again tomorrow. No excuses, no performance. I folded each page and placed it in a plain box. Not a shrine, not a punishment. A record I can face. I set a small frame around my days, 3 lines and nothing more. Do not lie. Do not enter where I do not belong. Do not defend myself. If anyone asks about the past, I say I did wrong and I stop. No footnotes. No weather report for my feelings. This is how I live now. I walk to work. I keep my head down enough to see where I am going. I keep my eyes up enough to meet people with a simple yes. I bring home bread and tea. I wash the cup before bed. I say Hannah's name out loud so it does not fade. I do not call Daniel. I do not stand near Sophie's life. Leaving them in peace is part of the work. Sometimes the quiet feels like a sentence. Sometimes it feels like a clean floor ready for the next step. Either way, I keep going. I do the task in front of me. I leave the room better than I found it. If someone asks who I used to be, I answer like this. I made choices that hurt people. I am trying to make it less. That's all. Then I go back to the list on my desk. On Sundays, I walk farther than I have to a mailbox that does not know my name. I drop a small envelope into a slot and listen for the hollow sound when it lands. It is not redemption. It is maintenance. Like sweeping a floor I chose to dirty. I will sweep again tomorrow. Some nights, I read the first page I ever wrote to Hannah and the last page I wrote this week. The distance between them is small, but it is real. Fewer words, straighter lines, less noise, more work. I thought I had stolen happiness. In truth, I only took everything. There is no judge harsher than the one I carry inside my chest, so I will spend the rest of my life making amends quietly, steadily, without my name on it. I will live different, and to anyone standing where I once stood at the edge of someone else's life, I am asking you to stop.
Turn back while you still can. I will keep walking forward one small repair at a time, because that is what is left for me to do.